The Kingdom Hearts series is now of legal drinking age, celebrating its 21st anniversary just now, and I thought now would be as solid a time as ever to come out with another ranking video of the Kingdom Hearts games. I did do a ranking video quite a few years ago, but that video is definitely in major need of updating, mainly because of the fact that 2 games in the series hadn't even been released yet. So with that, sit back and relax, and hopefully you don't get too mad at my current rankings for the series, from least favorite to my favorite, like any normal person would do. Coming in last is anything that has to do with Kingdom Hearts Key, or Chai, the meaning's the same, Unchained Key, Union Cross, Dark Road, that whole saga era art style, the whole thing. Now, I was intrigued with sort of this whole story arc early on. You know, even with the whole sort of weird, new, different art style thing, it was cool to see sort of the ancient lore of the Kingdom Hearts series, and I was intrigued through the whole initial story of Kingdom Hearts Key. But then it just kept on going and going, went on into Union Cross. It's like, all right, I'll follow this story. And that kept on going and going and going, and added some weird kind of story revelations and crossovers and that kind of stuff. And then we ended up getting Dark Road, and I think by that point I was just like, all right, this isn't really the Kingdom Hearts I want to see. This whole art style, this whole format on a mobile phone game just wasn't quite doing it for me. And that really gets down to the major issue I have, which is with how important everything is in this whole Kingdom Hearts Key saga, how important everything is going to be for the future of the series and the next phase of Kingdom Hearts post Xehanort Saga. To have all of this stuff on a mobile phone game, plus that art style that obviously isn't the typical Kingdom Hearts style that you want to see, I just find to be kind of unacceptable. I wish this whole story and saga could have gotten the proper sort of game treatment, or a remake at least. We're kind of getting that in the form of Kingdom Hearts Missing Link coming in the near, not too distant future, but sort of not really. It's not really a remake of that whole story. It's sort of a new story. But as it is right now, I just have to put everything in that whole Kingdom Hearts Key saga at the bottom of my list, unfortunately. Kingdom Hearts Coded. One of 2 games in the Xehanort Saga that qualifies as being filler / a spinoff. Though, despite being for the DS, the game actually did pull off some decent graphics and gameplay, and actually pulled off the command deck much better than BBS. Unfortunately, as everyone knows, the story is about as fillerish and rehashiest as you can get. Rehashing the same KH1 story we've seen, same KH worlds, same KH1 locations we had already seen in 3 games before that, then rehashing Castle Oblivion at the end, and then rehashing those same worlds we just saw in the game. Yeah, it's really boring to have to go and sit through all of this in what was just kind of a meandering, stretched out story. If that's not enough, you have Data Sora and Data Riku, which Data Sora was just too touchy-feely, naive, over-the-top good-natured for my liking, and then Data Riku, oh, sorry, I almost took a nap just thinking about Data Riku. In retrospect, the most fun / annoying thing in this game for me would be you play a drinking game during the final Castle Oblivion section, and take a shot anytime Data Sora or Data Roxas says the word hurt. You will be plastered by the end of this section. The dialogue is truly horrific. 358 over 2 days is the game in the series, not counting the Key Saga, most structurally unique, since you feel like you're living the day-to-day life of working for Organization 13. Playing the game for the first time when it came out in 2009, I started to feel like I was actually working a day job, because you're doing that repetition of working a job over and over and over and over, and yeah, you get the idea. That repetition does hurt the game in a sense, because you start to feel that repetition sometimes in a negative fashion, but that might be what the game was going for, was that kind of feeling. Besides the previously mentioned Coded, this would be the other game in the Xehanort Saga that would qualify as filler / a spinoff. But unlike Coded, which had little substance that I cared for, the added introspective of seeing Roxas' perspective working in Organization 13, plus the combo of his relationships with Axel and Xion, which makes for the best trio in the series, definitely makes it worth it. That's despite a decent amount of Xion's story coming across as bad fanfiction. The gameplay is obviously nothing special here, but that's the limitations of the system the game was running on. I still find it tragic that this game didn't get a remake a la Rechain of Memories. I mean, the assets for the worlds were all there from the previous game, save for Neverland. So I think a remake definitely could have took this game to the next level in a lot of fans' eyes, but as it is, I just see it as an alright installment that made the best of its resources. I wasn't really sure what to do with Kingdom Hearts 0.2 Birth by Sleep, a fragmentary passage. Do I treat it as a little mini KH game, a full game experience, a glorified KH3 demo? In the end, I guess I sort of put it as a combo of a little mini KH game and a glorified KH3 demo. True to the game's initial promise, it ended up being the same length as a Disney World in KH3, offering some decent world design, puzzles, and a preview of gameplay, combat, and bosses to come in KH3. Although speaking of sort of gameplay and combat, without the use of Grand Magic, mob bosses are a huge pain in the ass on critical mode, as well as some other annoying restrictions they put on that difficulty. Story-wise, due to the length of the game, there's obviously no big substantive content here. You know, the game is really about Aqua just dealing with her own insecurities. She, for all intents and purposes, died in the real world, and this 2.5-hour story is all about her coping with that death in the Darkness Underworld. Yeah, it's a little somber, but so would you be if you were in the realm of darkness for that long, so give the girl a break. Birth by Sleep, the KH game that I have the most mixed feelings on. And talking about the good first, I love what we got structurally story-wise going on here. 3 different stories, 3 different perspectives, sides, how they intertwine, and how it culminates in the start of the KH saga. You know, you get a tragic nature in terms of the ending here, the same way you get sort of in how I love the tragic nature in the ending of Revenge of the Sith. A prequel that lays this kind of foundation for a kind of mythology and epic mythology can have this kind of impact, even after all these years, once the initial shock factor of the first viewing is gone. And all these years later, it's still a debate for me what's the best order to play in. You got the official game order, which is playing in Terra, and then Aqua. Or you can do it the way I initially experienced the game, which was Ven, Terra, then Aqua. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, but I like that it's still a debate all these years later. And then there's the gameplay, which is where the negative side is going to come out of me. This game was the intro of the command deck. And while the command deck certainly isn't better than the command menu, that's certainly not the main issue here. Command deck has its fun moments to it. The issue is that this game has the worst boss design of all of the KH games. The lack of staggering, consistency, super armoring through your attacks is just god awful. And that's just a blanket statement for all of the bosses in general throughout the game beginning to end. The endgame story bosses plus super bosses are even worse than the story bosses here, by a large margin, and that's saying something. You'll just feel like a total fool having to spam dodge roll or cartwheel to avoid attacks, reduced to just blocking dark volley shots for maximum damage for Terranort, attack, dodge, attack for bosses like Vanitas who can just break out of any hit at random, or having to play a reactionary strategy when you have a boss like Terranort who will just dash and dodge any attempts to use Mind Square or projectile magic, stuff that's just been working throughout the game that you suddenly cannot use. You know, putting all of this in word form makes me even angrier, just because anytime I revisit Birth by Sleep, when I get to these bosses, I just want to pull my beard out. It's that bad. There's some other miscellaneous great, meh, and bad stuff. The great, or I'll say good, being the Mirage Arena, being a solid substitute for the Coliseum. Great being Leonard Nimoy's Master Xehanort. He was just fantastic. Then you have some mess stuff, like the Disney Worlds here, being solid, but definitely nothing great. And then bad being some of the voice acting at times. You know, this was the first KH game where the voice acting was pretty shaky and kind of a mixed bag, particularly from Terra. He had some lines that was just terrible. Yeah, you saw that coming. As you can see, I was not lying when I said I had mixed feelings on this game. Chain of Memories is unique for this exercise as it's the only game in the series to get a full-fledged remake. with the OG Game Boy Advance version and the PS2 version a few years later. Regardless of which version you played or will play, your initial tolerance for this game boils down to the card combat system. It's a deal breaker for some. It's a system that'll definitely frustrate those that are obviously more in favor of Kingdom Hearts' traditional hack and slash gameplay. While I can certainly understand casual players' frustration with the system, I find the card system to be manageable and not the slog that some people might think it to be. You know, it's a gameplay mechanic that forces you to properly strategize, think, anticipate on a level even beyond what difficulty setting you're playing on. Regardless, this system will be hit or miss for players, and there's no getting around that regardless of which version of the game you play. The system also in which you navigate through the worlds in this game and the areas also isn't very exciting and detracts from any potential replay value the game would have for me for future times around. Where Chain of Memories shines is undeniably the writing. When it comes to writing, when it comes to the story progression, the heroes, and the villains, Chain of Memories is excellent. Sora's emotions are really put through the test in this one, seeing the consequences of his memories being tampered with, and the organization's manipulation of him and the general progression of the story makes me wish that the writing for all Kingdom Hearts games could be this sharp. We get equally as fascinating dynamic with the villains in this, where I think the organization members shown here are the best pure antagonists shown for any standalone Kingdom Hearts game, led by Marluxia and Larxene. They're not some darkness-obsessed or keyhole-obsessed or keyblade-obsessed dreamers like we've seen with Ansem and other antagonists. They're just some douchebags, looking to take advantage of the Keyblade for their own selfish games. Now, I've only played the Chain of Memories version, and I like it just fine, but it is amazing to me that a lot of people that have played both versions and played the original version first do find that the Game Boy Advance version is better. It's just tough for me to picture with, the sort of graphic style and the limitations, but it is kind of haunting and amazing to see that Game Boy Advance version and see the Kingdom Hearts series in its infancy, with this being the second official follow-up to the original Kingdom Hearts game. Writing-wise, the only thing that I don't really like in this game is on Riku's side, and that comes to Ansem, and really just the whole Riku story in general. Take a drink every time you hear the word darkness said by Ansem, and as a whole in Riku's story, you will be plastered by the end. It's some pretty bad dialogue in the game with some otherwise excellent, sharp writing.
Darkness.
Darkness. Darkness. Darkness. Darkness is your darkness.
Darkness.
Darkness on darkness. To darkness. Darkness.
Darkness. Darkness.
Darkness. The darkness. Darkness. Darkness.
Darkness.
Darkness. The
Darkness.
darkness.
Darkness. Darkness. Darkness. Darkness.
Darkness, the darkness, even in the darkest darkness.
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 Darkness. The dark, but darkness. Darkness. Like darkness is darkness. Dark. Darkness in darkness.
This darkness, 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 dark, the darkness, 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 dark, darkness, 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 the dark, darkness, 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 the darkness, darkness, dark, darker, darkness, darkness, dark, darkness, 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 and then darkness, 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 dark, darkness, 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 dark, darkness.
Take this!
Melody of Memory is a legacy game that only a few kind of series can really pull off. As someone that knows every beat from every Kingdom Hearts piece of music, having a game where I get to battle through all of these KH tracks is just all kinds of awesome. It's a game that was very easy to get addicted to, trying to master these tracks and just seeing all the music they had to offer in battle form. It's super impressive the amount of tracks you're able to have here. Aesthetically, I just love getting to see these old KH worlds as background in the scenery while battling through these tracks, since it's likely the last time you'll get to see any of these worlds, let alone in the old Kingdom Hearts style, so there's a decent amount of nostalgia here. Now, unfortunately, the game did have a notable amount of Kingdom Hearts tracks missing. Pirates of the Caribbean, 100 Acre Woods, other stuff. And most disappointing was how most Kingdom Hearts 3 music, or pretty much all of it, was reduced to just dive section tracks, which aren't nearly as much fun as battle tracks. And also, just because this isn't really a story-focused game, more combat-focused in music form, doesn't mean there couldn't have been more substantive story throughout the game, instead of having everything crammed in at the end. Although thankfully it was a game that did move the story forward into Kingdom Hearts 4. Also, this game is designated as the Kairi game, and I can't for the life of me understand why she wasn't the playable one in the final boss versus Master Xehanort. I mean, seriously, what the hell was that, having her turn into Sora, especially during her game? I really did not like that. Those are issues to point out that the game was not perfect, but it did set out to do what it wanted to do, which was a showcase of the vast amount of Kingdom Hearts music in battle form, and it did an excellent job at that. Nope. Dream Drop Distance has the reputation for being most people's not favorite game in the series. Combat-wise, 3D as I'll call it here, unfortunately suffers from a lot of the same problems that Birth by Sleep does when it comes to boss mechanics and strategies, mainly single commands having to be abused to win against certain bosses. Also, this is the only Kingdom Hearts game that I would not recommend critical mode if you're looking for a fun time. A lot of the early bosses, like the Haka Monkey, are just atrocious on this mode, and your spirit's HP just gets drained by single attacks by a lot of the early bosses in this game. I mean, my time fighting the Commantis on the grid. Have I ever been more frustrated fighting a sort of Heartless, or in this case Dream Eater type boss? Yeah, it's hard to imagine, but I don't think so. So you may be thinking, with all this shit I'm talking, shouldn't this game be lower? Well, on non-critical mode difficulties, which I would recommend, or at least post once you get once more and second chance, I actually think this is a fun game to play, mainly because of flow motion. This game introduced this mechanic, and this mechanic of navigation combined with these massive worlds, a first time for this series, made for some fun exploration, navigation, and combat. I think flow motion makes it fun to battle enemies throughout this world as you use your environment to take out these massive amount of enemies. And as I've mentioned before, even though the game suffers from some gameplay issues that Birth by Sleep does, I do think they pulled off the command deck here better than they did in Birth by Sleep. Now when it comes to pure fun levels, this game surprisingly has some of my favorite Disney worlds in the series, with the Grid, Country of the Musketeers, and Symphony of Sorcery. You know, all of these worlds had fun level design, great atmosphere, amazing music, and I thought were a nice experience. The Grid just had such a cool vibe going for it with the whole digital stuff. Country of the Musketeers was surprisingly a fun world despite being based on a direct-to-DVD Disney movie. And Symphony of Sorcery, I mean, what just a masterpiece in terms of just the scenery, the music, and everything that went into it. And the design of the original worlds here is excellent. I love the expansions they made to Traverse Town. They made it feel just so fresh and exciting. And the twisted and demented nature of the world that never was in this one is amazing. It's just such a haunting experience to experience this twisted version of the world through navigating through the city and the castle. I also like how Sora and Riku's stories were told simultaneously through switching back and forth between the characters. Now, the drop mechanic obviously isn't everyone's favorite mechanic in Kingdom Hearts, and it's definitely not perfect. But if they didn't have that, then I guess they would have had 4 switch-off points between Sora and Riku, and whether or not you consider that a good or bad thing is up to you. And then finally, there are the dive sections, which these sections are fantastic. These are the sections in how you enter a world through the first time in this game, and they're a lot of fun. Visually, they're great. There's a whole lot of variety when it comes to the challenges and whatnot. And I'll take these sections any day over the Gummy Ship sections in Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, or 3. Add all of this up and you get a game that I guess I have ranked higher than most people do. You know, at the time that this game came out, the series was celebrating a special milestone with you having 10 years of Kingdom Hearts magic in your life. And that magic still plays into the game today for me, with how the game celebrates the whole of the Kingdom Hearts series up to that point. The original game that started it all. Underneath 21 years of complex mythology and retcon storytelling is a simple and clean story about a boy searching for his friends while battling the darkness. I still think the original Kingdom Hearts game has the best story and storytelling. A large part of that is due to all these years later, the first Kingdom Hearts game is still the best in the series when it comes to incorporating the Disney worlds into the main story. While some more than others, these worlds in large part progress the story with its narrative and don't feel like they're just there to fill in time until they drop all the important main story at the end. I still believe that KH1's Hollow Bastion visit is probably my favorite segment out of any Kingdom Hearts game. There's an amazing natural build-up to this visit, great level design, puzzles, and some spectacular story bosses that are still icons to this day. Still remember that Sunday afternoon like it was yesterday in the early 2000s, where I was getting PTSD from having to watch that Sora versus Riku Ansem cutscene at least 13 or so times because I kept dying and there was no skip scene feature. Iconic stuff right there. Now, what unfortunately holds the OG Kingdom Hearts game back for me anyway, is that this has a few of the worst Disney worlds in the series for me. You know, you had Wonderland, which I don't think was very good design-wise and didn't really capture the spirit of the movie and was missing, didn't have really a whole lot of cutscenes. You had Deep Jungle, which is notorious for getting players lost, especially first-time players, to where I have to warn people that play the first Kingdom Hearts for the first time. You will get lost in Tarzan, and let me know if you need some help. Then you had Monstro, which was just a confusing maze design-wise, was bland when it came to scenery, really looking at the same room over and over. Really good story-wise, but not a whole lot else after that. Then you have the gameplay system, which is solid, but obviously not as fluid or fun as things would develop in Kingdom Hearts 2 or 3, but it does make up for it with overall better level design than 2, better usage of magic, and more RPG elements. When it comes down to it, the OG Kingdom Hearts game still has that special magic that has us all hooked 21 years later. Drinks for everyone. Kingdom Hearts 3 will be remembered just as much for its legendary wait as much as the game itself. Whether you waited 13 years or 6 years, depends on what kind of fan you are, I guess. Those years of waiting and development paid off in the sense that we got a beautiful looking game. Kingdom Hearts has obviously never looked better, seeing the full world and characters of Kingdom Hearts in the Unreal Engine 4. I also think that the Disney worlds, while nothing's ever perfect here, are at their most complex writing-wise, and it's clear that a great amount of work went into them visually, design-wise, and thankfully some variety when it came to gameplay mechanics like the pirate ship battles or the mech battles. When it comes to your base gameplay, lots of fun, flashy gameplay mechanics with Keyblade form changes and other stuff. Keyblade form changes are probably my favorite Kingdom Hearts gameplay mechanic ever introduced. I love this feature, as well as the ability to switch Keyblades on the fly. That was a great touch that was much needed for some faster paced variety when it came to some gameplay. Story-wise is where things are a bit of a mixed bag for me here. I said this when I played the game for the first time, after I finished it, and I'll say it now. A midway point was definitely needed for this game for some better story pacing. Now, not every Kingdom Hearts game is going to be able to have a Kingdom Hearts 2 level midway point, but my god, this game did not even try. This is really just needed for better story pacing. As it is, this game is the most back heavy of all of the Kingdom Hearts games when it comes to shoving all of the important, significant Kingdom Hearts story stuff post last Disney World visit. A midway point of a spectacular 100-acre wood visit just ain't gonna cut it for me, no matter how much they went all out with the Keyblade graveyard stuff, which was great. But then it's countered by a tragically neutered Twilight Town, no Radiant Garden, and no real original world exploration in the story of this game. For me, the initial base game of Kingdom Hearts 3 left a lot to be desired, but I do believe that the additions brought on by Remind greatly helped, improved, and honestly saved Kingdom Hearts 3 for me. Improving base Sora combos, additional challenges through Procrodes, explorable Skylat Kylum, the Guardians of Light battle, and additional character gameplay, of course. And then, of course, there's the extra super bosses in the form of the data battles and Yozora. These were some spectacular boss battles that were fun to learn and brought out the best of Kingdom Hearts 3 gameplay. In retrospect, it's easy to look back at Kingdom Hearts 3 with a raised eyebrow because it is the latest numbered title in the series and the long wait for it. But despite the complaints I have, the game still has enough spectacular about it for me to where I have it ranked where I do. Kingdom Hearts 2 is the iconic signature game of the Kingdom Hearts series, and that includes Kingdom Hearts 3. While part of that is admittedly my nostalgia for one of my favorite games ever, there's just so much about this game that I love. In the context of the Kingdom Hearts series, this game took KH1's gameplay to the next level in terms of your combos, variety, flash, and style. Not only were things perfected for Sora here, but also for the enemies, specifically bosses, which remain the standard for Kingdom Hearts gameplay to this day. As an overall adventure, it's just so wide-ranging, from your settings to your characters, with you got your Roxas prologue, the adventures in the Disney World, to the epic Hollow Bastion midway point, among other things. So much great adventure in this game. I stated that Kingdom Hearts 1's Hollow Bastion section was my favorite segment out of any Kingdom Hearts game, while KH2's Hollow Bastion midway point in this game, which includes the Space Paranoids visit, would come in a very close second. Take notes, Kingdom Hearts 3. What's amazing about KH2 is how it's able to be my favorite Kingdom Hearts game, despite some major flaws when it comes to the game's storytelling. Now, the story concept is fine, and there's times, of course, where the storytelling really shines. See the Roxas prologue, the midway Hollow Bastion point, and of course the entirety of the world that never was. But the storytelling in the Disney worlds is where things definitely could have and should have been tighter. While there were some exceptions and moments, compared to Kingdom Hearts 1's Disney storytelling, it's just collectively not as strong in terms of connecting to the main story. I guess where it still works for me is that I love the lineup of Disney worlds in this. It's probably my favorite, or definitely my favorite lineup of Disney worlds in any Kingdom Hearts game. And for all the flaws that there are here and there, I just still had a fun time in mostly all of them. You know, despite whatever writing flaws you can point out, each of them contribute to the overall adventure and fun that I have for this game, and that's sometimes enough for me. Even with my initial nostalgia and fondness for the game, the original vanilla version of Kingdom Hearts 2 wouldn't be able to get this kind of praise from me with my more critical eye all these years later. That's where the final mix version comes in, that accessible to North American audiences through the 2.5 edition, and that takes this game to the absolute next level with all the great additions. With critical mode, post-game content like the Cavern of Remembrance, among other things, and much-needed additional cutscenes that flesh out Organization 13, as well as additional story cutscenes here and there that just help things out all around. Overall, Kingdom Hearts 2 has a magic that is just too much for me to resist, and that is why it gets the gold medal for my favorite Kingdom Hearts game. So there you have it with my ranking of all of the games in the Kingdom Hearts series. I don't know if there'll ever be a time where I stop being sort of an avid fan of Kingdom Hearts, maybe if the next sort of saga post-KH3 starts to go off the rails. But for now, I'm happy to have had 21 drinking years of a series that I've enjoyed through and through. So that'll do it for this ranking video. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching.